Hi, I'm Jim with Pour the Juice, and in this video, we're going to be reviewing and rating Jefferson's cask strength out of 100. Um, this is going to be the second time I'm rating a whiskey out of 100, and this is my little format that I have here. We have 6 different criteria. Some of those are split into different parts. So there's flavor, nose, value, complexity, balance, and uniqueness are the different sections of my rating. Uh, flavor is flavor is in 4 parts. There's my pleasant versus off-putting scale, intensity, finish, and viscosity. So those are all 10 points, leading into 40 total points for flavor. Nose is 2 parts. There's pleasant versus off-putting for nose, and there's also intensity for nose. The rest are as they were, different points for everything. Like nose total comes to 15 points, so it's 10 for pleasant versus off-putting, 5 for intensity. My next section is value. Values out of 15 points, and that's where I'm going to start this rating and review. So Jefferson's cask strength, according to their website, is 8 years old, and the price of it, SRP as far as I know, is $69.99. So you are getting better than that 10 years or $10 per year base that we're really looking for out of a whiskey. So because of that, it's, that alone, it's going to be half the points. So value for me is 15 points. It's at least going to be a 7.5 since it's better than the $10 per year average. It's also cask strength, so that's going to put the value up as well. Now, it's not finished. I don't think it's anything crazy. And we don't know the mash bill. We don't know a couple other things to give it extra points and really put it in the top tier. But for value, I am going to give it, I have a 12 out of 15 points here, but I think that might be a little bit low. I'll go 12 and a half, 12.5 out of 15 for value. The other 3, like I said, complexity, balance, uniqueness, those are all out of 10. I'll get to those a little bit later, but I do want to pour some of this. Now, Jefferson's, as far as I could find, does source their whiskey. Part of that sourcing process is, from what I see listed, is MGP, but a large portion of what they do is with this distillery, I forget the name of it, but they essentially only have Jefferson's listed on their website. So I guess they are distilling for Jefferson's and maybe some other places, but this is going to be who they're mainly making whiskey for. And I haven't heard of many other bigger whiskey companies getting their whiskey from them. So, that's fairly unique, I guess, but I'm going to go by nose. As I mentioned, there's 2 sections. There's intensity on the nose. That's going to be at a 5. And pleasant versus off-putting. Intensity on the nose, if I could smell it from here, that would be quite an intense aroma. That's what I would be looking for a 5. If I could hold this glass over here and I could still smell it, that's, quite perfumey. It's not quite at that level. I'm getting hints of it in the air. And, for 130 proof, a lot of those whiskeys that are that high in proof are going to give you an intense nose. And this, there is a nose on it, but it's not as nearly as intense as I would hope for 130 proof. Now, my scale, my grading system isn't based on, oh, this is at 130 proof comparing to other 130 proof whiskeys for a nose. It's just in general for a whiskey. And because of that, a lot of lower proof whiskeys are going to score lower going through this. But all I'm trying to say is I guess 130 proof being, in the lower end of the nose for 130 proof isn't a disadvantage of this whiskey because I'm comparing it to the breadth of whiskey out there. That may have been confusing. I hope not. It is pleasant though, so while, I definitely can't give it a 5 on intensity on the nose. I can't give it a 4 either. I don't think it's even close to a 4. I'm going to go 3 on the nose. And pleasant to off-putting, it's certainly pleasant. I don't think there's much off-putting to it. There's a little bit of, I want to say like grain alcohol, but that could just be because of the proof. It's a nice nose. It's, and intensity is the other part of that. So I can't take off for pleasant versus off-putting with intensity because that's another section. And complexity is a different level too in my grading system. So I can't give off for complexity. So, for pleasant versus off-putting, I am going to put this at quite pleasant. It's an 8 out of 10 on pleasant versus off-putting for me. It's a nice smelling whiskey. It's not perfect. It's not exactly what I'm looking for, but it is quite nice. All right, let's go into flavor. I'm gonna go with the taste. Like I said, there's a bunch of different portions of this, pleasant versus off-putting. There's intensity, finish, and viscosity. I'm going to judge viscosity first because it's going to be the first thing that hits my palate. And then I'm going to think about finish as I'm doing that as well. So I want to see how long the finish is, which is really primarily where that score is going to come from, as long as it is also a pleasant finish. Those are both out of 10, both quite important for me for my grading system. And it's fairly viscous. It's not, I wouldn't say it's syrupy, but it's nice. I'll give that a 7.5 out of 10. The finish is decent. It's just falling off now. And it was pleasant throughout that. I'm going to have to give it another sip to really see. But it was nice. I'm pleasantly surprised. When I first cracked this, I wasn't too impressed. I didn't get the hype around it. But now that it's been sitting open for a little while, it has gotten better. I'm going to go with intensity on this too. It is a fairly intense whiskey. I'm going to go 8.5 on intensity of flavor. Finish, I'm also going to give a 7.5. It's really interesting. Most Jefferson's products that I've tried in the past have come across, to me at least, quite malty. That's, Jefferson's Ocean, that's Tropics, a couple Jefferson's Oceans. I think that's normal. I might have had the regular Jefferson's product at one point too. And to me, they come across malty, or at least the ones that I've tried did. This one has a lot of fruit on it, and it doesn't come across malty at all. This, to me, is for sure the best Jefferson's product I've ever tried. And that's coming from somebody who does enjoy the Tropics version. But hands down, I would pick this over Tropics any day. Any day, I'm taking this over Tropics. Pleasant versus off-putting out of 10. It is pleasant. There are some rough patches. That phrase "smooth with the whiskey." I wouldn't call this smooth. There's rough patches in there. I tend to like some rough patches in my whiskey. But that does weigh on the pleasant versus off-putting. Now my score, pleasant versus off-putting out of 10, 5 is directly in the middle. So 5 isn't pleasant, or it's not off-putting. It's just okay. A 4 would be slightly off-putting. A 6 would be, just fairly pleasant. For me, this is going to be a 6.5, and it's close to being a 7. I'm closer to a 6.5 than a 7, though. It's pleasant. It's not incredibly pleasant. I think the other aspects of the whiskey, besides the actual flavor notes themselves that are coming off of this, are better than those flavor notes. And there are some good ones. Like I said, there are some nice fruit notes on here. But for me, there's a little harshness. And because of that, I can't bring it into some upper echelons of whiskey flavors. Maybe when it opens more, it will for me. And that's going to lead me to complexity too. It's not too complex. So there is fruit on this, especially on the nose. I get a lot of fruit on the nose. The first time when I cracked this and I smelled it, to me it smelled like Eagle Rare, which is interesting. And it's still I still can kind of get that a little bit. This also leads me to the intensity of the nose as well. It smells almost exactly like Eagle Rare to me. Like I get almost the same amount of intensity off a glass of Eagle Rare than I do this. And I would say the flavors in there, you're getting a little bit of fruit. But I wouldn't say there's caramel in it. I wouldn't say there's brown sugar or molasses. The flavor is pretty bright throughout. I wouldn't even say it's confection or sugar. To me, it's more of a white sugar. White sugar, fruit, oak are the main components here. Vanilla for sure. And it's the same thing with complexity as I mentioned with the pleasant off-putting flavor category. 5 would be in the middle where it's like not complex, but also not complex. And it's going to be pretty close in that vicinity. Honestly, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 for complexity. And balance is interesting. I wouldn't say anything is out of balance. It's just the components that I would want to be balanced in there aren't there, and therefore I take off points in complexity for it. But what I would say is the oak is present, the fruit is present, and the sugar, the white sugar, whatever sugar it is, to me it's not a caramel. Like I said, it's not a brown sugar. Maybe a little bit of caramel. To me, those 3 are in balance. Besides the harshness that kicks in. So, I can't give it maximum points because the harshness really comes in and takes it off balance. And that harshness, I don't know what that could just be the high proof. But it does come in with a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of that harsh edge. But balance is going to be quite higher than complexity here. I'm going to give that a 7.5. And uniqueness is also interesting. So, there's quite a few cask strength bourbons out there. Like I mentioned, this one, according to the website, is 8 years old, although that 8 years isn't stated on the bottle. So I don't know the legalities of that. If you know, you could trust everything that's listed on the website the same as you could trust on a bottle. If we're taking that for what it is, I will for this review. I'll say, you know, it's 8 years. It's 130 proof. There's obviously comparisons out there that you could bring in. Elijah Craig barrel proof would be one of them. You know, those are all at least say 10 years, and they're all say at least 123 proof. They do picks of that as well. You can go with, you know, Old Forester single barrel proofs and Jack Daniel's single barrel proofs, and those are all single barrel, so they're a little bit more unique. But having said that, there aren't too many batch products that are shelf stable, although I don't know how shelf stable this is because it says it's a limited bottle. Does limited make it unique? I don't think it does. Not to me, it doesn't. But I would say being 130 proof on the shelf for at least now, I don't know how many other products out there you're going to find. If you find the bottle, you're going to find it at 130 proof. You know, even those Jack single barrel proofs, they vary from the low mid 20s to mid 30s. Old Foresters are tougher to find. There's ones out there, but 130 is getting up there. So it's going to be higher than 5 out of 10. Maybe I'll go 6.5 out of 10 for uniqueness. And then, so what I'm going to do now is I have all my points here. I'm going to go through, I'm going to add everything together. I'm not going to do that on camera. I'll be back soon. It takes me a while to math. Thanks. Okay, we're back. I've, added up the full score of what we got here. And the official PTJ, Pour the Juice score for Jefferson's Reserve Cask Strength is going to be a 72.5 out of 100. Now, I don't think I said this in my last review video. Anything in the 70s to me is something that I would buy. So, between 70 and 79.9, I would say it's worth a purchase. When it goes up into the 80s is when I would say you probably want to buy a backup. But anything in the 70s, well worth a purchase. 80s, well worth a purchase. 90s, absolutely, obviously. But I do think this is worth a purchase, especially if you like the higher proof stuff. For the price, I think it's a pretty fair buy. And in all honesty, I want to support those decisions with companies, especially Jefferson's, who in the past I have said that I think their products are a little bit too expensive for the market. Jefferson's Ocean, I think, is more of a marketing gimmick. Tropics as well. That's just me. I love marketing, but to me, those whiskeys, are kind of overpriced. This one I don't think is. This one I think, you can make the argument that it's a little bit underpriced. So I think those are the types of whiskeys that we should really support and the decisions that we should support. And regardless, this is my score, 72.5. It's a buy for me. It's not a buy and back it up. It's not a stash it. It's, grab one for your collection, see what you think. But I hope you enjoy. If you like the video, please please subscribe, and let me know what bottle you'd like to see reviewed next in the comments. Thanks for watching. Cheers.